All right. Hi, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. My name is Nadia Moretta. I am the Assistant Community Engagement Manager for the Office of Community Engagement for the City of Raleigh. We have other folks and staff members from the City of Raleigh here as well. Sadia Satter from Budget and Management Services, and Mark Walden from the Division of Community and Community and Small Business Development. We are here today to delve into some specific aspects in regards to a proposed West Raleigh Municipal Service District. The request, which was initiated by the Blue Ridge Corridor Alliance, aims to secure funding for the implementation of a district-wide project or district-wide projects and services in the Blue Ridge Corridor area. And the map that's displayed on the screen is actually an illustration of the proposed boundary of the MST. And so in this listening session, we really aim to not only inform you all about the requests, but also provide you an opportunity to express your concerns, aspirations, and sentiments, and for you to feel heard today, but also be well informed about the potential implications of this proposed change. So I'm actually, like I mentioned earlier, I'm recording this presentation so that we can have it on our RaleighNC.gov website, and we will upload it there as well as our YouTube channels. So make sure if you have any questions you want to ask to put them in the chat, and we'll read them during the section of the section of our presentation where we will open it up for questions. But you can also submit your you could wait to ask your questions after we stop recording. All right, so next slide. So just an overview of what we plan to discuss today. So here's our agenda. Like I mentioned, we have folks here from the Blue Ridge Corridor Alliance who will give you a comprehensive overview of what the proposal is, their background, timelines, etc. So you'll get a good sense of what the tax rates will be in this type of project and initiative. We'll go over the feasibility study that was recently updated related to this municipal service district, timelines and how things work, how MSDs work, and their interaction with economic development. Then we're going to open it up for your thoughts and impressions. We have a couple discussion questions we're going to be going through, and I will be facilitating that section of the session. And then we'll discuss some next steps and give you an opportunity again to ask any additional questions. Before getting started, I just want to also go over some agreements that I hope we all can agree. We are technically here until 7:30. So just want to encourage folks to make sure that they're aware of time and how long they speak when we have our discussion time. It's also important for us to stay on topic. So if you have anything off topic you'd like to express, save it until the end, since we have a limited time with you all today. And we'll share our email information with you guys and contact information so that if there are any other concerns you want to talk to us about, we can get those addressed and to the right people. Then I want to also encourage equal participation. So if you have something to say, we welcome it, but give others an opportunity to share as well. So those who are quieter are also invited to participate and contribute to the conversation. And then Zoom actually has a really cool feature. It's the raise hand feature. If you go the bottom of your screen, there's like a bar of different options, and you can go into reactions and select raise hand, and it'll actually put you on the screen, and we'll know that you have a question to ask. So those are all the agreements. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna go back. Those are all the agreements that I wanted to go over today. So I'm going to hand it over to the Blue Ridge Corridor Alliance. They have a presentation to go through today. We actually have Jeff Morrison, who is their executive director, and he will talk to you all about all the details related to the proposal / request and give you some comprehensive information. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nadia. Appreciate the intro and opportunity to be here tonight. As Nadia said, my name's Jeff Murison, and I am the executive director of the Blue Ridge Corridor Alliance. And I think she's gonna pull up that. And so by way of background, well, first of all, thank you all for taking the time to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to share this information with you and answer questions. By way of background, my full-time professional responsibilities is the president and CEO of the Hillsborough Street Corporation. That's the municipal service district on Hillsborough Street. And I'm going to say in around 2014-ish, partners of stakeholders out in the Blue Ridge Corridor area came to us and asked, geez, you're getting a lot done on Hillsborough Street. How are you doing that? Basically. And so we told them. And then about 6 months later, they came back and said, if you were us, what would you do? So we shared some thoughts and suggestions. And sure enough, 6 months later, they came back and said, can we hire you all to help us? And so they did. They hired the corporation to provide staffing and support for their group. And we helped them get set up as a nonprofit corporation and continued to move forward ever since. So that gets us here to tonight. But that's my dual role here. So moving forward, really, we can start talking a little bit about the area in question, which we are increasingly calling the West Raleigh community. And so you're familiar with this area. This is the map up there highlights it. It's basically the area west of 440, north of Western Boulevard, north, if I should have, if I didn't say that, north of Western Boulevard, east of 40, and then up to and around where Edwards Mill and Blue Ridge Road intersect. And this is a really interesting, dynamic, but complicated, basically triangle. It's like a triangle within the triangle within the triangle. We look at it as at its base, it's a transit ecosystem. Basically, Blue Ridge Road on the east side, Edwards Mill on the west side, and a series of crossroads, Wade, Trinity, Hillsborough Street, and Western, that basically make a triangle, transit triangle. And that's a transit ecosystem, and the roads all are a network, and the highways that connect to the highways, and that creates a dynamic flow of cars. But then, around it is an economic ecosystem of all these really high value, unique, very different destinations and venues. And they're all packed into a pretty tight 3 by 3 mile area that's really, unique and complex. And so in that area, you've got a state fairgrounds, and you also have the state art museum. You've got a hospital that gets 1 million patients a year from basically Greensboro east to the ocean, is their service area, and 2 stadiums that entertain millions of people a year, as well as an arboretum, an eco station, and a whole bunch of people living on the periphery of all that, all wedged between RDU and RTP, and basically downtown. And so it's really, a unique area. It's a complex area. There's city, county, and state interests there. And it's really beginning to emerge as what we see as a new urban core, right? So downtown is an urban core. North Hills is a sort of second tier urban core, a second urban core in Raleigh. And this is emerging as an additional second urban core, um, with a whole lot of venues already out there. But when you talk to folks that work around there and really that live in that area, that there's a lot missing. If this were, we like to talk about it as if this were a mall, it would be a mall with like 8 or 10 department stores, um, the anchors, but not a whole lot of food court and not too much of the rank and file, stores, the Gaps and the other small stores within there, the Apple Store. So when we talk to people that the employers and people that work there in all these places, they say, there's no place to go for lunch. There's no dry cleaner. There's nowhere to go after work for a happy hour or to entertain our clients or to celebrate something after work. And so that infill is that makes it a destination and a community, is really a challenge that we hear a lot from really all of our stakeholders, people that come to Rex to for because their family member is there for some healthcare, don't have too many, don't have places to go to, stay, the hotels to stay in, restaurants to eat in, things to do. Um, and that same experience is shared to us by folks that work in some of the office buildings, both on Edwards Mill and Blue Ridge. So it's a unique space, it's a complex space, it's got lots of challenges, but it's also growing, and so that'll probably get us to the next slide. We for the past 4 or 5 years, we've been tracking the development projects within this area. This map shows since 2016 development projects, building projects that have either been completed, that are under construction, are in the planning process. Now, this map is about a year old. We're going to come out with the newest one in a couple of weeks, and it'll have more. But as you can see, there's, I think, about well, I've lost track, but there's quite a few, 20 plus projects in this area that are either being completed or in the pipeline. And they're relatively spread out over the whole space. They're both public projects, the things being done by the city, county, or state, and private sector projects done, with private capital. And so this is an intensely rich investment area, and there's some big ones that are underway. And so on the western side, on Edwards Mill, is Bandwidth's campus that's going to add, plus or minus 1,500 employees over there. And on the eastern side, at Blue Ridge Road, is Department of Health and Human Services new campus, moving off of Dix Park and consolidating their offices onto this new campus across from the Art Museum. That in the end will have 5,000 to 6,000 employees. And then, of course, in the middle, over at the Centennial Authority, that's the owners of the property where the PNC Arena is. They, as you probably saw in the news, they just announced that the owner of the Hurricanes is committed to keeping the Hurricanes in the arena, which is fabulous here in Raleigh. The city and the county is investing $300 million to renovate the arena itself. and he'll be investing in the neighborhood of $800 million over 10 to 15 years in redeveloping the area around the arena. And that's just going to have enormous transformative um, uh, impact on this property, sort of right in the center of this space. Um, I've described that as like hitting the economic development lottery. You know, that's like winning the economic development lottery on Monday, winning it again on Wednesday and again on Friday. It will be the city's biggest economic development project in its history. You know, roughly $1 billion worth of investment, adding office, retail, residents, affordable housing, music venue, sports book, and a whole lot of probably other things that are, you know, have yet to be imagined. And they're just getting started on doing that. But as all these projects, you know, continue to pop up in the corridor, and we hear about a new project pretty much practically once a week, if not more, they have an impact, and they're going to take management to make sure that they're what we like to say thoughtful additions to the community that add value to the existing stakeholders. And the existing stakeholders are those anchor establishments, the anchor venues that are already here. There are existing neighborhoods. There are the things that we love about this part of the city, and what we as the Alliance wants to see is additions that add value to that not take away from those existing destinations. We can move to the next slide. We also track and work with the city, county, and state transportation departments to attract the transit investments in this part of the city. And there's, I think, 13 of them. That's a lot of transit investment in this very small space. It almost, you know, crisscrosses, circumvents, and surrounds this area. There's so many projects. They run the gamut. They run from greenways and sidewalks to bus routes to new roads, improved roads, up to the bus rapid transit system, the highway expansion and grade separation project at Hillsborough Street and Blue Ridge, where the road will be going underneath the train tracks, all the way up to potentially commuter rail and the highway expansion, and ultimately even the bike trail path from that'll go from the Art Museum all the way out to Chapel Hill. Just a lot of projects being done by the city, the county, and the state. And so we spend a lot of time currently helping to coordinate them and help ensure that they're seamlessly integrated, that they're working together. And we're creating a network of transit opportunities that'll provide a lot of value to the community. And then we're identifying where there's still open need, right? So that if you take bus rapid transit and get off at the corner of Blue Ridge and Western, how would you get from there, you know, to the the Department of Health and Human Services campus up by the Art Museum, other than walking, right? So a lot of investment. You add that's basically about $2 billion worth of transit investment, plus the roughly $2 billion that's in the private sector and public sector building investment, and you've got an enormous amount of activity going on in this area. We can move. So a little bit about the timeline and history. Way back in the early 2000s, the city started to work on this part of this, you know, area of the city, coming up with the small area plan around this the PNC Arena. That moved forward and ultimately resulted in the Blue Ridge Road district study and plan that helped, you know, guide and direct what was going to happen in this part of the city. After that is when the advisors and the stakeholders started to, you know, talk about what's going on and how do we, keep moving this forward. And that resulted in 2014, the creation of the Blue Ridge Corridor Alliance. They started meeting, working, advocating for, things in the community and talking about how do we, how does the organization sustain itself and have the resources to be able to provide services and help impact improvement. And they studied the question for a long time, and ultimately just concluded that the one worth really deep contemplation was the municipal service district tool. So they hired a third party vendor, an expert in municipal service districts, to do a comprehensive study and evaluation of that in 2022. And then ultimately last year, the consultant produced the report, having talked to a lot of the stakeholders, had all kinds of information sharing and feedback methods, really looking at the area, the needs, the opportunities, and the structural the issues, and then produced a report that they brought back to the Alliance as a final work product, and that was accepted by the Alliance, and they've used that as the foundation for moving forward. A little bit more background, along the way, the Alliance has really taken a deep dive in understanding the neighborhood, building on the Blue Ridge Corridor study, really taking a deep analysis of the economic profile of the space. Next slide. The Alliance currently is made up of voluntary contributors, right? That's how it's funded. We've got about 50 voluntary contributors, big institutions like NC State and Rex Hospital, and the Centennial Authority, Art Museum, all the way down to property owners and merchants and residents in the community. Well, there's about 50 of them that have been providing the funding to keep the organization going for the past 8 years. Along the way, we've worked on a lot of things, been strong advocates for the redevelopment of the property across from the Art Museum, that ultimately is become the new home for the Department of Human Services. And you can see that coming out of the ground now as you drive on Blue Ridge Road. And helped promote, the recognition that there's a lot going on here. And so this slide just captures some of the media about it, and the coverage. Interestingly, as that's gone on, the media has started to brand this area West Raleigh, and that identifier has sort of caught on organically, and we're beginning to follow their lead on identifying this part of the city as West Raleigh. So now we can transition to the MSD report itself. Next slide. So a little bit of background. Municipal service districts are a tool that the state legislature created, state law, that gives municipalities the ability to create zones, districts, and assess an additional tax on the taxable property within that zone. And as you can see here, there's a whole bunch. I think there's like, I don't know, I think well, there's a whole bunch. They're spread out all over the entire state, and they range in, they're not just in the big cities. They're in the big, big cities, medium cities like like Asheville and Wilmington, and then they're in smaller towns as well. And in some places, like as you can see there in the blue and the gold dots, there's multiple. They typically, the districts that are created are defined by the municipality, and they typically include, large corporations, big range of property owners, big, medium, and small properties, large corporations, small businesses, apartment buildings, nonprofits, parks. Um, Back in the like 70s, the big cities across the country, their downtowns were really struggling, and so this tool was created to allow cities to um, define a space, collect the money from the additional assessment, and then use it back in that same district, in that same space, to solve the problems, and the issues that they were confronting. And it's grown, from there. And from what started in, big cities, urban areas, have now um, grown and spread over time to being a tool that could be used in different kinds of communities to solve all kinds of challenges. We can move on. So this map illustrates a couple of things. First of all, where the two existing municipal service districts are in Raleigh. One is the Downtown Raleigh Alliance there in the center at downtown Raleigh. The second one is the Hillsborough Street Municipal Service District that runs along Hillsborough Street next to NC State. But there's other spaces that either are similar, have similar kinds of organizations, or are in the process of considering having a municipal service district, like Dix Park, Downtown South, and the Midtown Raleigh Alliance in the Midtown area. And then it also shows the boundary that is proposed by the report for West Raleigh. So zooming in on that part of the city, this is that West Raleigh area, that triangle essentially made up by Blue Ridge Road, Edwards Mill, and Western Boulevard. As I said, the consultant spent a lot of time getting public engagement, big meetings, little conversations, surveys, one-on-one with stakeholders, conversations with key communities, and listening for a whole range of, what are the issues confronting your neighborhood and the community, what are challenges, what are the problems and needs, and then working that all up into the report. We can move forward. And so ultimately, they packaged all of that up into the report and came out with recommendations both for the district boundaries, rates, scope of work, what are the actual things that need to be done and could be done, and then a budget as well. And so this is the boundary that the report recommends. The yellow line is the sort of outer edge of the boundary. Everything inside that area that's taxable land would have the assessment on it. The first thing you might notice is that space sort of in the middle and the southern end of it that's not included. You might ask, what's going on there? Well, that's the state fairgrounds and a little bit of NC State property that is not incorporated into the city of Raleigh. And so, the law gives the city the authority to create one of these zones over city land. Since it's not in the city, they can't, put this boundary over it. So that has to be left out. The second big piece here is that their recommendation, and it's a pretty common practice across the country, is to not include what I call traditional residential neighborhoods, where owner occupied neighborhoods. And so as you can see, those are excluded from the boundary. The easiest one to sort of identify is the Meredith Woods neighborhood on the eastern side edge of the boundary along 440. But there's the residential neighborhoods to the north of the boundary and to the northwest on the western side and on the southern side, are not included. And so they're excluding the residential neighborhoods. Largely speaking, there's no residential zoned properties inside that yellow district. There are two properties that are zoned residential. One is really a business. It's a house that a business is run out of. It's got a big sign in front of it that's, for whatever the business is for. So that's sort of an anomaly. And then there's the beach property, which on Blue Ridge Road, which is a field. There's no structures on it now, and it's got a zoning case in front of city council as we speak to sell and redevelop it as a luxury apartment building. So it's basically in the process of becoming a commercial property and no longer a residentially zoned parcel. So within that yellow boundary, there's about $3 billion worth of taxable property. Of course, there's additional property that's non-taxable, all that non-taxable property for, things like the art museum and the university and the hospital. But there's about $3 billion worth of taxable property. Before the county did their countywide reassessment here this a couple of months ago, there was about $2 billion worth. And so the report, which was produced before that, all the math was done based on the reassessment information. And so in there, it took that $2 billion worth of taxable property and applied an assessment, a tax rate of 3, 5, 7, and 9 cents and then did the math to determine what that would generate as a municipal service district. The board looked at all of that info and ultimately decided unanimously to focus on the 5-cent rate. And ultimately, when the board went to city council to ask for the council to consider this, they recommended the 5-cent rate. Of course, since then, the county did the reassessment. The total value of the properties went up, and that allows the assessment rate to go down to 3 cents, or a little bit above 3 cents, 3 cents in fraction. So it still generates the same amount of money. It's just it generates that at a lower assessment rate. So the current ask is for the 3 cents level. So I think that covers this parcel or this slide. Basically, that's the boundary. The total assessed property in there is about $3 billion, and the assessment rate is is for 3 cents per $100 worth of value. So we can move forward. So what would an MSD and for West Raleigh be? What would it look like, and how would it support the community? So what does an MSD do? It has the opportunity, and the city really ultimately in the end defines exactly what the scope of work for any municipal service district will be. But largely speaking, the main areas of workflow, work scope, is to make it welcoming, to make it more attractive, to keep it safe, to keep it clean, and to keep it safe, or to help in all those areas, to work on economic development and planning, communications, marketing, and placemaking, and to really be an advocate for solving the issues, the challenges, the problems in that area. And that's what both the Downtown Raleigh Alliance and the Hillsborough Street Corporation do. So that can manifest itself in a whole lot of ways. Largely speaking, it would probably do the same kind of things as the other two municipal service districts do, just in ways that apply and are unique and to the Blue Ridge, the Western West Raleigh community. So it could take it would take the form of landscaping services in public areas. Hillsborough Streets Corp is responsible for the landscaping of the roundabouts, and so picking up landscaping of the boulevards or the the exit ramp areas that don't get very much attention. Removing graffiti and flyers and that kind of thing that gets stuck everywhere, or working with the property owners that have the graffiti on their buildings to get them replaced. Sidewalk and lighting and other safety improvements. Banners to help identify it as an area, to welcome people and identify it as a community. And a whole lot of community education and outreach and engagement to help folks understand what's going on, give feedback, and know what's happening in their community. These are some, illustrations of what that looks like. Can be as small as, removing graffiti from existing stuff, to outreach and helping with, visitors. Here's a perfect example of where a municipal service district could help out, right? So the boulevard on Blue Ridge Road in front of the art museum and down towards the hospital. It's a state road, that's state land. They cut that grass, once or twice a year. The rest of the time, it looks like that. It's not the city's responsibility. And so, the MSD could, help by hiring a landscaping company to clean that up and make it look, a whole lot better year round. We can keep moving forward. Here's an example of graffiti that's already on the new underpass under the highway. That could be there for a long time. And so either working with the city, or excuse me, working with the state, or just taking care of it ourselves, get that kind of thing removed. We do that kind of thing on Hillsborough Street all the time. A lot of economic development planning and urban planning. We're working on advocating for affordable housing, encouraging that to be included in new projects, community engagement and planning process. As I said earlier, a lot of work done to coordinate and advocate for the transit system, supporting our small local community businesses, and helping to promote and attract more minority and women-owned businesses into the community, as well as just really being the voice and the knowledge base of what's out there, what are the economic conditions in this part of the city. Here's a little illustration of the sort of before and after on that economic development front. This is a part of Hillsborough Street. Before on the left is before the corporation, and on the right is after. You can see, weeds, trash, not a lot of people, not particularly attractive, no trees. On the right, much more clean, recycling, parking. Mature trees, some infill, and yet also retaining some of the existing merchants. Just a pretty stark difference from before and after. In Hillsborough Street's case, well, yeah, we'll keep going. We'll keep going. A lot of advocacy on urban planning, working with the city, county, and state on the transit systems, helping to facilitate, bus shelters, bike share stations, all those kinds of infrastructure needs to help make it a better place to live and work and visit. A whole lot on the communications front, right? How do we brand this part of the city? How do we let people know that it's there? How do we, we can keep going. Identify it as West Raleigh. Creating an interactive web space that supports that promotes the corridor, and the merchants, that helps people find places to live and what's going on. Sharing information, really an outward facing website that's based on that supports the users and the visitors. Creating a database of what all's out there and the stakeholders. Promotional material, outreach and engagement with the community, as well as promoting the investment in public arts, and a strategy to help the tourist destinations that are already there, be successful and work together so that it minimizes the congestion that comes with those kinds of events. Here's part of that is placemaking, that's celebrating the activities that are going on there, and helping identify it as a place where people want to be for that live, work, play experience. We do a lot in the public art. This is actually a picture of public art that's coming in, that's being installed by the city as they're doing the renovation to Hillsborough Street, to Blue Ridge Road. That public art will be installed as part of that, and we've been part of helping get that message out and engage the community into what that's going to look like. Banners along the main corridors to help identify, and this is West Raleigh. So all that adds up to that's sort of the scope of work, right? The kinds of things that people can expect the organization to do. And that leads us to budget. And so things to know. I call this sort of a micro tax. It's similar to a homeowners association fee, right? The money is collected from the area, that district, that within that boundary, and it must be spent within that area. So this money isn't being taken by the city and used in other parts of the city. It's very micro focused, and nobody loves to pay more in taxes. I don't, it's human nature. But when it's your money coming back into your neighborhood, and it's governed by a board of your stakeholders, so that it's you've got a say in where and how it's being spent, then it doesn't feel quite so bad. So it's a sort of micro focused tax. And our voluntary contributions from the non-taxable properties have been helping to fund the Alliance this whole time, and they're committed to continuing to contribute to the cause moving forward. And so they're invested in the future as well. We believe that the nature of a municipal service district is that everybody who pays in gets a benefit from the services provided. Those benefits may be and are likely very different depending on who the stakeholder is, but everybody gets a benefit in one way or another. It can be a small business that has cleaner sidewalks, that have more information about how their community is changing. It can be a resident in an apartment building that walks their dog, and because our team is out there checking on the streetlights and knows who to call to get them replaced when they're burned out quickly, feel safer. It can be folks that are interested in the thoughtful design of the urban plan, and that there's transit systems to meet their the growing needs of the community. They can be big, medium, and small ways, but we believe there's a spectrum of services, a spectrum of benefits, and that ultimately everybody in there benefits in one way or another. We can move forward. So as I said, the assessment as rate is now requested at 3 cents. I like to use the $1 million property as an example, right? So if you owned a parcel of land that between the land and the building on it was assessed by the county at $1 million, the 3 cents assessment rate would mean that you pay $300 annually for the MSD. Of course, that scales up and down, right? So if your parcel was only worth $500,000, it'd be $150. If it was worth $10 million, it would be $3,000. For purposes of comparison, the Hillsborough Street Corporation rate is 15 cents per $100 worth of value. and the downtown Raleigh rate is about 8 cents. So this is relatively low. And across the state, the rates range from just a couple of cents like this all the way up to 27, 30 cents, right? So there's a real spectrum of what those rates can be. We've had a lot of people ask about what the impact would be on renters, people that live in apartment buildings and rent in those facilities. And so we've done the math, right? We've applied that 3 cents to the value of that property, figured out what the different, what that would cost, and then divided it amongst the number of units in that building. So if it's a $20,000 assessment and there's 400 units in there, we can say what the price, what the cost per unit in that building would be. We've done that for the roughly 22 apartment buildings in that footprint in that district. And we've seen that on average, it's about $80 per unit per year. So it comes out to be something in the neighborhood of $5 to $8 per unit per month. And of course, if it's you and your buddy or have rented a 2-bedroom apartment, then that's like half, right? We can't do the math on per person or per bed, but we certainly know per unit, and so it's a fairly manageable impact. Of course, in that, again, forget, there was a little note at the bottom. I just want to make sure, or that last slide. Right. As I said earlier, we've been getting voluntary contributions from the tax exempt partners, and we expect that to continue. Right. Thank you. Move forward. So an outline of what the revenue part of a budget would look like. Basically, that 3 cents rate on the district as drawn would generate about $900,000. We currently get and hope we'll continue to get a contract for economic development activities from the City of Raleigh. That's an important part of keeping the relationship strong with the Economic Development Office and the city. It helps us leverage other opportunities. As you can see, the next line is voluntary contributions from our exempt partners. That's based on that's based on the history of what we've been getting from their contributions. I think there's opportunity for that to grow as the organization and the municipal service district moves forward. But we wanted to start conservatively with with what is typically being collected so far. And I think there's opportunity for sponsorships and events and other income. Loosely speaking, that adds up to about $1 million a year in revenue. The next couple of slides talk about how the money would broadly be used. These are, a starting point to developing a budget. This will obviously get more and more refined once, if the city moves forward. But this is what I would recommend. Can we pop back for just a second? Sort of general operations, administrative overhead. There's a range there. If it's based on my professional knowledge and running Hillsborough Street, if we continue to operate like we are now, jointly, we're operating both organizations. Obviously, that would create some cost savings and efficiencies. So that would, push it down to the lower end on that. Staff, taxes, benefits, that labor component. Public space management and then programs are really the service areas for what the organization would be doing to use the municipal service district funds. I think we have a couple of the next couple of slides illustrate those service areas spaces with some examples. So in public space management, this is the bread and butter. This is making it more welcoming, more attractive. and more identifiable. Contracting for landscaping, debris removal, ambassadors to be out there to help address issues and identify problems and fix things, trash pickup, banners, to help identify it as a destination, gateway, signage and wayfinding, to help make sure people know where they're going and how to get there, right? We want folks that are coming to those destinations to have a great experience. And the first part is, sort of knowing how to get off the highway into those spaces to have a great space getting there, and then great experience while they're there. Terms of other programming, economic development, that could be in the form of activities and programming to support our small businesses, to promote existing women and minority-owned businesses, or to attract more to the community. Programming to help do urban planning and transportation investment. Of course, marketing and communications are going to be things like websites, the website, promotional activities, newsletters, community meetings, outreach, that kind of stuff. And then investments in public arts and things that make the community more vibrant and attractive. So those kinds of activities are all part of the services.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Sadia, and she can go over some of our process.
All right. Thank you, Nadia. Can you please let me know if you can hear me?
We can hear you.
Awesome. So I know that we're already, we're getting close to time here, folks. So I will try to be brief. So Jeff has shared a lot of information with you all about, the purpose of, this MSD services provided, and giving you a ton of background on, how this idea for the Blue Ridge MSD came about. So my role today is to share with all of you what the next steps in the process are with regards to sort of making, really creating this MSD. So in the slide in front of you, you will see some of the actions that we have taken as a city for the Blue Ridge Corridor line. So, we've been talking about this for a while now. And what you can see in front of you is sort of that process that we've, going back as to 2019, where, staff was directed by City Council at the time to create or complete a feasibility report. And the feasibility report really says, and this updated feasibility report has been shared. If you go to our agenda management system board docs, it's been shared over there, and it's also available at the clerk's office, which really goes to show you the services, and really like what it's going to cost, the residents, or the revenue associated with the tax rate associated with this. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to look at you can see that third box over there, where this really just, this conversation was revived in November of this year, when we went to City Council to initiate a formal process on the creation of a Blue Ridge MSD. And we were given feedback from City Council at the time to update our feasibility report, which is what we did. So next slide, please, Nadia. So we went back to City Council on the 6th of February, which was just last month, and we shared the updated feasibility report with them. And we also, kind of let them know what that tax rate would be, should they move forward with creating this MSD, and also shared with them what the next official stages that the City of Raleigh needs to take in order to create this MSD. So the first thing that City Council has to do is to schedule a public hearing. City Council has not yet scheduled a public hearing, and they directed staff to do more engagement. So this is what we are doing now about the MSD, to really educate folks about what the MSD entails and all that fun stuff. So once City Council schedules that public hearing, the city will mail notices to all the owners within that proposed boundary. And then, of course, there are some folks who will file petitions to be excluded from the proposed district. So we have to leave some time open for that as well. Next slide, please, Nadia. And then, of course, City Council has to schedule a public hearing, like I said, and then the dates at the bottom share with you, when that public hearing has to take place. Now, remember, as I mentioned earlier, we have to mail some notices. So we have to give a 4-week have to have a 4-week break there between folks can get those notices, respond to those notices, and we can actually host the hearing. So it doesn't appear that we'll be hosting or City Council will be giving us any directive to host that public hearing as early as the 19th of this month, but they definitely do have to do that by the 7th of May. And then the city will go through its process, where it will hold a first reading of the ordinance and a second reading of the ordinance. And that's really to ensure that when we adopt the budget, which has to be done in June of this year, this upcoming budget, we will then be able to set the tax rate for the MSD. So next slide, please. And, before we, let's say City Council says, yay, after going through the public hearings, getting overviews of this engagement process that the, Office of Community Engagement and Blue Ridge Corridor Alliance is doing, they decide, okay, we want to do this, budget's adopted, then they will turn over and create an RFP, which is a request for proposal to seek out service providers to operate the MSD. And those are the folks that will actually be responsible for administering the MSD, not necessarily the city. It's those folks that will do this. So then we'll review the proposal and we'll vote to award a contract to that service provider. And of course, the tax levy has to be, done or be established with the adopted budget for the upcoming fiscal year. So next slide, please, Nadia. So here is that example or the map that Jeff shared about the proposed boundary. As you can see, the majority of the parcels in that boundary are commercial properties, and that includes apartments, hotels, motels, banks, office spaces, restaurants. And of course, when we speak about apartments, we do talk about rent, where I understand that, there's a concern with renters kind of taking on the burden of the MSD as well. Next slide, please. So then what is that potential tax rate going to be? So the city provided in the MSD, in the feasibility report, some scenarios as to what those that tax levy could be. So starting at 1 cent to 10 cents. Now, if you all remember, the BRCA proposed expenses of around just a tad bit above $1 million. And at that time, this was pre-Wake County reval. The assumption was that a 5 cent tax rate would cover the proposed expenses. So after we went through the revaluation from Wake County, which, if you're a homeowner, you would have definitely heard about this, the revenue needed to kind of administer the MSD of these expenses is 3.02 cents. And that's what we have determined will be the cost directly related to administering and managing the MSD. Next slide, please. So I am now going to turn it over to Mark Weldon to talk about how the MSD funding can, be directed towards economic development in the Blue Ridge MSD.
Thank you, Sadia. Can you all hear me okay? I will assume you can. Hi, everyone. I'm Mark Weldon from the Small Business Development Team for the City of Raleigh. Me and my team, we take care of economic development for small businesses, storefronts that make each neighborhood special. And I wanted to spend a few minutes just explaining how we engage with MSD oriented business alliances in other parts of the city. The team works very closely with Downtown Raleigh Alliance and the Hillsborough Street Corporation to look after economic development metrics, economic development performance in each of those districts. So presumably, if we were to do an MSD here in the Blue Ridge corridor, it would look very similar. So economic development focus is primarily on business retention and expansion, keeping the businesses that are there, and then helping them grow. The MSD funded programs do have objectives to provide metrics and activities that support the small businesses. For entrepreneurial support, we are able to work with MSD funded Business Alliance leaders to help identify open spaces, properties. Sometimes they're aware of properties before they're even on the market. And we've also been able to partner and program some pop-up markets where small businesses that are not quite yet ready to take on the cost of a full-time rent can basically do a space sharing short-term lease that's organized by the MSD funded Business Alliance to give them an opportunity to do proof of market and then ideally grow into a full-size business of their own right. And then finally, from a recruiting perspective, and this would be something as the corridor develops, there's going to be some new building that is going to occur. Some of that will more than likely involve street level retail, and with a MSD funded Business Alliance in place, that those are resources and people that go to work every day to help connect the empty spaces with businesses that are looking for them. Next slide, please. The way that we do this is we have formalized reporting. So there were, I think, some questions that were along the theme of accountability earlier. So what we are able to do is set down what kind of things we want to measure, primarily businesses opening and closing. This is data that we don't actually have at our fingertips with the City of Raleigh, so it becomes a very valuable proxy for the rest of the city, working with groups like Downtown Raleigh Alliance, Hillsborough Street, and presumably Blue Ridge Corridor, if this is approved, to identify how many businesses are opening, how many are closing, understand the trends, and find ways that the city can engage to support those businesses. We also get reports on foot traffic trends, what the development pipeline looks like. So what kind of buildings are going to be coming up out of the ground a year from now, and just general market and workforce data. From a Business Alliance small business support perspective, we really rely on the MSD funded Business Alliances to help the small businesses in the district with small business promotion, marketing campaigns. They might have some fun seasonal events where people from other parts of the city will come visit and spend their money and benefit those local markets. We also are able to work through the Business Alliances for technical assistance. So when the city or some of our other entrepreneurial support organizations have training webinars or workshops or things that would benefit the small business owners, it's a very convenient way for the city to get the message out through the MSD funded Business Alliance. And then finally, the MSD funded Business Alliances are very effective at giving those small businesses in that district a voice. So when there are concerns in the area from the business community, that the business owners have a single point of contact that they can call to raise issues up with the city. As Jeff was explaining, they know who to contact to do everything from solid waste to pipes, mains breaking, or what have you. Next slide, please. And you'll be glad to know this is my final slide. So managing the city's priorities with the MSDs, I talked about the single point of contact, the training and networking opportunities, technical assistance, crisis management, which is often thought of as an afterthought, but I can tell you that when the pandemic was coming, when we knew that the city was just about to shut down the following day, that the relationships we have with the Business Alliances was invaluable to help prepare the business owners for what was coming and how to best prepare and respond to the needs of that community. And finally, the accountability part, again, we do have defined economic development priorities that we negotiate and agree upon with the MSD organization. And we have currently quarterly reporting and evaluation that the city does, kind of looking over their shoulders, but we like to look at it more as a partnership. So that's just I guess, an example of how the city engages with an MSD, with an organization that's representing the MSD, and the way that we connect most directly through the economic development mechanism.
Great.
And with that, I'll turn it back over to Nadia.
So much, Mark. Well, that concludes our presentation. I'm going to stop recording.